Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Coaxum Report. I'm your host, Terry Coaxum, and you can catch us on Amazon Fire TV, on Android, on Roku, Apple TV, and we're partnered with Tempo and with Kalalu, and you can also listen to us on the radio at WSTX Bloomberg. And I'm super excited today to be joined by Andy Welchek, attorney Andy Welchek, and he will be coming on talking to us a little bit about his career and a little bit about some best practices and big ideas and sharing some nuggets with our listeners. Andy, how are you?
Terry, my audio is off. This is making it hard to
I can hear you clearly.
Participate in your wonderful show.
Oh, wow. And I can hear you clearly on this side. Can you? So you're not able to hear us? So you want to go out and come back in. So we're having a little technical difficulties with Andy Welchek. So he's going to go out and come back into the show to make sure that we are able to hear him clearly on his audio. And so in the meantime, for our listening audience, we have a great show planned for you today. We have Andy Welchek, who's an attorney, and he'll be talking to us a little bit about his career and some of the barriers as it relates to business, some best practices and big ideas, and we'll be sharing some solutions. And again, for those of you that are just listening to us today, you can join us on our TV network. So it's really going to be an exciting show today here on the marketplace. I'm looking forward to talking with Andy about some of his accomplishments in his career and all the things that he's done to be successful in the space that he's playing in right now. So again, we'll have Andy to come on. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Metro New York's port services are currently constrained and challenged in facilitating the handling of international cargo. It's time for a whole new ballgame. Just 55 miles north of the city, Stewart Airport, closed during the base realignment, is an underutilized resource that could be maximized and bring growth to the area and relieve New York City. It's an ideal place for a thriving supply chain center of regional excellence called SCORE. We intend to support the New York and New Jersey Port Authority's commitment to the New York International Plaza, putting it at the forefront of a transformation of regional global trade, telecommunications, and economic growth. A logistics-based regenerative smart city that supplies an interactive platform of data and document interoperability to optimize resources. SCORE will transform this location into a thriving hub that can process and distribute cargo via various methods of transportation, elevating it to one of the world's best intermodal ports. We aim to build a cybersecure network operations center that enables customers to share data in real time across the supply chain and across the whole region, utilizing eco-friendly practices to keep things running efficiently. And it doesn't stop there. Not only will SCORE develop high-speed wireless networks in a data-driven city to improve logistics and facilitate international trade, it will also create critical infrastructure for regional economic development. By optimizing the business environment, attracting startups and investment, supporting the development of high-value industries such as medical, education, technology, and hospitality, creating new employment opportunities for the region. SCORE will inject vibrancy and inspire prosperity in an underutilized area to develop a greener and more livable smart city that thrives, bringing excellence to the Hudson Valley. It's a game changer. Visit IC Logistics to learn how you can support this SCORE economic development initiative at Stewart Airport.
All right, that seems better.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear. I hope you can hear me.
Awesome. I feel like a Verizon commercial. So again, to those just tuning into us, this is Terry Coaxum, and we have Andy Welchek on, and you can catch us on Amazon Fire TV, on Android, on Roku, Apple TV, Tempo, and we're partnered with Tempo and Kalalu Network, and you can also catch us on the radio, Andy, at WSTX Bloomberg. So we're super excited to have you on this show. Our show is being broadcast out of the Caribbean, throughout all of the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, and of course here in the United States. So welcome to the Coaxum Report. How are you?
I'm fine, and I'm apologetic for having screwed up the audio earlier. But
Listen, it happens. Technology is great when it works.
exactly.
So I'm super excited. So tell us a little bit, Andy, about who you are and your career, and so we can kind of jump right on into sharing with our listening audience some best practices.
Thank you, Terry. I'm a real estate commercial lawyer in New York City. I help people and individuals, businesses, companies that own property in New York and have problems, which is to say, all of them. At some point or another, when you own a building or operate an office or a commercial tenant, or you serve one of those customers, you're going to get a ticket from the city, or you're going to get a problem with your neighbor, or you're going to have to buy or sell something, or you're going to need to move. These all can present problems that you need somebody with experience to be able to help you with. And you come to me and I'm doing to make it go away.
That's a good thing. You're the one to make it go away. When you started talking about commercial real estate, I remember when I first started working for Small Business Administration, and I had a meeting with the Women Chamber, Kenya or Peru actually, and we were talking about commercial lease, commercial property. And one of the biggest barriers for some of our Dominican hair salons was the commercial lease. A lot of business believe when they rent a property to hold their business, they're not looking at the CFO. They're not looking at what they're able to do in that space. And a lot of times they run into just what you said. They run into problems. In particular, if you decide as a commercial leaseholder to renovate the space to, say, hold your salon, and you put a lot of money into it, and then the landlord decides, and it's in this rental agreement that he's going to give you another space, so to speak, you really don't have as many rights as a lot of my small businesses thought they had. And we ran into some problems with that. So what I would say on anyone that's listening to us today is read your lease, read your commercial lease. It's not a tenant lease. It's not a landlord tenant lease. It's a commercial lease, and it's a little different. And so I encourage you to read your lease and see what you're
absolutely. You took the words out of my mouth. This is why I went to law school, so I can read.
Reading is fundamental.
And when my customers come to me, my clients come to me with the kind of problem that you're describing, what can I do to build out the space to have my salon or my grocery store or my dental office, whatever it might be?
That's right.
The rules are in the commercial lease. The landlord owns the building. He says what's allowed. Now, before you start and before you sign on the dotted line and lay out your hard-earned money, you have an opportunity to negotiate some of those things. For example, you can also open a nail salon and then get sued by somebody in a wheelchair because they can't get up the steps into the front door.
You got to be accessible.
And the landlord is responsible for that, but so are you under your lease.
That's right.
You and the landlord could talk ahead of the time saying, you know what, this is going to happen sometime. People in wheelchairs want their hair done just like anybody else.
That's right.
They're entitled to it under the law. It's a civil right. And so we're going to have to be prepared to have to put in a ramp or something like that at some point.
That's right.
Let's talk about how we're going to share that cost, because obviously it helps the hair salon stay in business, means they help the landlord stay in business by getting his rent paid. So everybody's happy.
Absolutely. And so, and one of the things that we have here in New York, and it happened, I believe it was actually under the Bloomberg administration. At that time, we had a commissioner for small business services. It was Rob Walsh, and we had a conversation about these commercial lease. And so there is some assistance available through small business services where we have pro bono attorneys that will help you interpret your lease before you sign on the dotted line. So I'll encourage you to either hire Andy, get someone that understands a lease, and not all attorneys are the same, right? Or also take advantage of some of the services available through New York City and New York State, through New Jersey, Connecticut, these other spaces where they have small business services. They have small business development centers as well as small business service centers that can help you interpret that lease.
Those services are vital, and I'm
Yeah.
glad you pointed that out to the audience, because people need to get understanding of what they hear from their lawyer. There's nothing against paying lawyers. I'm all for that. But these free public services allow you to better understand what you're paying for when you get your own lawyer to read your own lease. And frankly, you have to look at those efforts to be careful ahead of time as a cost of doing business. You put your heart and your soul, not to mention your hard-earned money, into this business. You don't want to lose it because you missed something.
That's right. And I encourage all small business owners that are listening today to make sure that, and I say this all the time, even when you're not on the line, Andy, you need an attorney, you need an accountant or a taxpayer, CPA, but you need someone to interpret your numbers, someone to interpret your content, and help you run the operation of your business. And so those are all vital services. So make sure that you have them on board, because you don't want to run into a problem and then have to seek out Andrew or another service to help you get out of that. New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut, we all want our taxes paid. And so you don't want to run into any problems. Another problem, Andy, that some small businesses encountered was around Department of Labor. I had a few small businesses that actually received the PPP from the federal government. And what they didn't understand is that if you have a payroll, even if you are one person, that you are responsible for disability insurance, you're responsible for workman's comp, and you're responsible as a small business owner. And so what you don't want to do is run into a situation where you're paying a fine. And I had a conversation with Department of Labor, and they said that fine can be as much as $1,000 every 10 days in penalties for not having workman's comp or not having disability insurance and having a payroll. And so, and if you read, again, back to interpretation, right? If you read Department of Labor criteria, you'll realize even if you have a volunteer or an intern and you have a payroll, you're still responsible for making sure you have those things in place. Your insurance is in place. And so small business, I want you to build wealth. But I want to also make sure that you're following, the letter of your business so that you are bringing money in and not putting money back out for things that you just don't understand. So you do need an attorney, you do need a CPA, and you do need to understand the criteria for how you're running your business, the district you're in, and all those other things.
Bringing up CPAs, accountants is particularly appropriate. Even though we're talking about taxes, we're talking about paying taxes.
That's right.
It's not hard to figure out that you owe tax. You don't really need to go to the Supreme Court to get the answer to that. You owe tax. How much tax do you owe?
That's right.
That's for your accountant to help you figure out and to help you keep track of. The other thing that these professionals help you with is to watch the numbers. I find too many small business people, and I was this way too when I was a young man and I was first started. I didn't want to hear about it. I wanted somebody else to take care of it. You know what? I'm here to help folks, and you know what? You number crunchers go, take care of yourselves over there in the corner. That was a mistake,
right?
The hard way, and I don't want your listeners and your watchers to have to learn the same lessons I did. As my father used to say, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. You want to get what you want.
I love it.
Try to get some answers ahead of time.
That's right.
Pay the money that it takes to, just like you would to pay the money to have your lights on.
That's right.
Thing.
You want to avoid those issues.
Exactly.
So, we've given some great nuggets so far. And we're just a few minutes into the show, but that's why I knew this was going to be a great conversation. The one thing I just want to thank you again for being a part of the show. I remember when I worked in a law firm way back then, I used to hear that talk is cheap unless you're talking to a lawyer.
Well, we hope it's worth it. That's what we sincerely hope.
So it's really good. Just want to dig into any other barriers or some of the best practices. Like, what would you tell? Yeah, I have a lot of small business owners. I help them with their business organization, and then I work with them on making sure that their business operation is going properly, and I introduce them to financing services. I encourage them to go into SBA.gov, and there's tons of other things out there. There's CDFIs, traditional banks. So, what are some of the other best practices, some big ideas that you can encourage our small businesses to take advantage of? I'm always about solutions. I want to make sure that they're getting the best results. We're telling them to keep their paperwork in order, to interpret their commercial lease, to understand their numbers. What else are some of the things that you can encourage small businesses to do from your experience?
Don't do what you don't know how to do.
Okay.
I learned the hard way. I'll give you a number crunching example. When I went solo, this is now many years ago, before I joined the firm that I'm in now, I was a one-man band. I did everything. And that included doing the bookkeeping. And I spent tens of hundreds of hours with the online bookkeeping software that's out there. Most common you hear on TV, you see Danny DeVito in commercials. QuickBooks is lovely. I could never get it to work.
Right.
I wasted hundreds of hours and who knows how many dollars trying to get it to figure out how I could keep track of my numbers, because we know that the gospel is I'm supposed to know how much is in the bank every day, going in and coming out. And I couldn't do it by myself. So suddenly I had a bright light went on and said, you know what? There are things I know how to do and the things I don't know how to do. I can pay people to do the things I don't know how to do. Imagine that. I have a remote. This was before the pandemic. This is before anybody could spell Zoom. I have a remote bookkeeper been working with me for many years, and she keeps track of all the numbers. She sends me the bank accounts, the bank statements, and we have a prime directive. I'm not allowed to write checks. I have to write to her and say, please write a check for so and so and so and so for so much, because otherwise, if I'm out there writing checks, we're going to be out of money by next week. Not because I'm a spendthrift, but because it's just not something I'm good at. Now, if you get sued by somebody in a wheelchair who thinks that your store is illegal, you don't go to my bookkeeper, you come to me, and I'm going to help you with that, because I know what that's about. And so the lesson here is know what your skills are and what your needs are, and make sure you're meeting them either way.
Right. And make sure you're getting your rate of return. I want to add to that as well. Right. So if you're spending all of those hours on tasks that you can hire someone out to do that can do it better, then you are not spending your quality time doing what you do to bring more money in the door. And so one of the things I always tell my small businesses, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's tons of services out there that can do the things that not only you don't know how to do, but the things you don't want to do. Case in point, I hate administrative work. That is not my thing. I can go out, I can bring you a bit of business, I can build it out. But when it's the administrative work you want me to do, I hire someone for that, because I spent a lot of time doing that, and I realized that's not something that I really like doing. And believe it or not, Andy, this is shocking. There's actually people out there that love administrative work. There are people that
and God bless them. God bless them. And you know what? This is how we bring up the young people. And more people into the business and to the entrepreneurial efforts that we want to encourage in our communities.
That's right.
It's a pipeline.
That's right. That's right. As I tell people all the time, my daughter, she loves administrative work. She's an administrator. She loves the work, and I get through it because I had to get through it. When I needed to hire someone, I just hired her, and she was able to accomplish the administrative work that I needed done. I had like 3 months of administrative work, and she was able to do it in 2 days because she loves it. It's what she does. I'm like, oh, there's people that like this stuff. Let's hire them.
Exactly. And pay them what they're worth.
And pay them what they're worth. Absolutely. Absolutely.
because that brings value to your business and peace of mind to your heart, without a doubt.
Exactly, exactly. And you're absolutely right. So that's one of the things I'm going to say to our listeners. And one of the other nuggets, Andy added, um, is to pay people, one, pay people what they're worth. But number two, get someone to do either what you don't have the skill set to do or just what you don't want to do in your business. And all of this stuff is important work. So we're not saying it's less important, but I know what my skill set is, and I know what I love and enjoy doing. I love empowering and encouraging people. And so that's what I get out here and I do. I'll bring in the bit of business, and then I have the administrator to keep up with my customer relationship management. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't step away from my touches because that's what really makes my business work. Being able to have conversations with my customers, being able to assure them that we're doing the best quality and the most efficient and effective service for them. I still want to do that stuff. I just don't want to crunch the numbers. I don't want to put in the data. And I have people that love to do that type of work. So get them to, the people that are out there that want to do it, get them to do the work. Absolutely.
And that also means that when I am doing what I'm doing, it is worth what I'm charging. I'm not ashamed.
That's right.
I had a mentor.
I love that. I love that.
I had a mentor many years ago who said, you know what? How are your clients supposed to believe that you can take care of them if you can't take care of you?
Yeah, I love that. Oh my God, that's amazing. That right there is worth its weight in gold. That really, really, really is worth its weight in gold because I've seen so much of that, right? Where you're not taking care of your part of the business and even taking care of yourself, right? So if I'm running a business and I'm running myself into the ground, how am I going to be my most efficient and effective self? So I have to take care of myself and take care of whatever it is in my business so that my clients are able to reflect off of that success, right? Because I'm radiating off of you, Andy. So if I'm coming to you and I'm asking you to do a specific task, you're looking at my organization and what I'm doing, and you're able to help me. But we're basically radiating off of each other. And if I'm not doing my part, then we're not going to be successful as a collective. So yeah, that right there is worth its weight in gold. Making sure you're taking care of what you need to take care of, so that we can you can be an example of what you're talking about, but more importantly, you can put your 110% into your client. That's good stuff.
Absolutely.
That's really, really good stuff. So now let me ask you another question. So we have, there's so much we can talk about because I've tagged you in on so many things when it comes to small business and some of the barriers, and not even barriers. Like sometimes I just have questions when it comes to the different business types, right? And so now, do you work with both nonprofit business as well as for-profit?
I have. In commercial real estate, there's not as many not-for-profits in the market, but I just did a closing last week where one charitable organization was selling its office, which it owned as a condominium unit, for 40 years. They had a great deal. Wow. This was such a furtherance of their mission to be able to own this property. Wow. And then they sold it to another charitable organization. Nice. And they were both involved in using this space, which was just could have been an insurance office. It didn't matter, but it was well located and big enough for the needs that these two organizations had.
Right.
So not-for-profits doesn't mean you don't have money, doesn't mean you're not making money. It means you're not paying tax and you're doing have a charitable mission.
Right.
And you're going to need expert advice from consultants like yourself about operating the business and lawyers like me when you're buying and selling property. You're not going to do this out on the corner. You're not holding the cup and shaking the chains. No shame in anybody has to do that. But as an organization, if you own and buy, sell business space for your operation, you need to have it done just as professionally as anybody else.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you're bringing that up because one of the questions I get all the time when I have business that are coming in there, they're interested in doing certain types of work. And they're asking me, I'm not sure if I want to start my business that's doing this service as a nonprofit or for-profit business. And it really, for me, it comes down to the mission. It comes down to the mission of the organization and what you're looking to do, what you're looking to accomplish. And also comes down to the funding sources that you're looking for as well. Like I've had some business that started out giving service to young people in the community, whether that was in their music, in their education, and then they were going after grant money. And so, I would encourage them to look at the different funding sources that they were going to be able to use and when they were looking at the organization of their business. I'm gonna let you answer that. I know that we have to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. But let's talk about some of the business organization models and what works really well, so that we can give our businesses an understanding of how they should be operating their business for most effective and efficient ways. All right, we'll be right back. Thank you. Uh-oh.
Today we're taking a little vacation on the west end of St. Croix, visiting a seaside restaurant called the Beachside Cafe here at Sandcastles on the Beach.
The atmosphere is just wonderful.
You just feel very welcome when you're here.
Hi!
I'd like to introduce Chris and Ted, who are the owners of Beachside Cafe and also Sandcastles on the Beach. This is amazing!
Thank you.
Sandcastle on the Beach is quiet and friendly, relaxing.
I often entertain guests, and this is the one place I always try to bring people.
Tell us a little bit about the hotel.
Well, the hotel is a 25-room hotel. We have 10 different room types within that. We also have, of course, our greatest asset, the ocean out there, which our side of the island is very calm typically. So it's the best swimming beach and also great for snorkeling.
And just walking, doing a nice walking beach tour.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Best beach access is right here, so we love them.
And we're also fortunate we have just up the way Sandy Point National Park, and then Frederickstead Town is just a mile away. Mm-hmm. And so we're really fortunate to be in this perfect spot.
I'm Charles Meriday, and I'm in the restaurant business. In my 20 years as a chef and restaurant owner, I've been able to work and eat in some of the great kitchens around the globe. There's a whole side of the restaurant that most people will never get to see. So now, I want to take you to the back of the house, into kitchens of some of the best chefs in the world. Along the way, I'll share some of my own tips and recipes so you can cook like a pro too. So join me in the back of the house for a whole new perspective on cooking and food. Order in. Roger. Serve it, please. I'm glad that you came, please.
So nice.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
Welcome back to the Coaxum Report. For those of you that are just joining us, you're on the marketplace, and you can catch us on Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Roku, RTV.network. I encourage you to download the app so that you can catch our show later on. And I am super happy to have Andrew on, and also Andrew, we have we're partnered with Tempo, with Callaloo Network, and you can catch us on the radio at WSTX Bloomberg. So I'm excited. This has been some great conversation around just the essentials of your business, knowing what you need, how important an attorney is, how important knowing your numbers are. And when we broke for a few minutes, but before that, we were talking about some really important stuff. We're talking about your business organization, your business operation. We talked a little bit about what's needed in your business and what your skill set is. And what Andy talked about is making sure that you understand your skill set, and and I said you're making sure your rate of return is up. So if you understand your skill set and there's something that isn't in your skill set, you can either hire someone to do it, or something like administrative work that I don't like doing. You can also hire someone to do it. And Andrew made a great point, making sure you're paying them what they're worth, and then making sure that you are operating at your most efficient and effective self by taking care of your business and by taking care of yourself as well. So we had a lot of great stuff that we just covered in that short period of time. So talk to me, Andy. Anything else that we want to add for our listeners that just joined us?
Well, there are all kinds of different forms of business, but the thing to be most careful about is the clarity of having written agreements with your partners.
Oh, yeah.
Because we very often think of ourselves as solos, but that's very seldom the case. There's somebody that works for us, somebody that provides service to us, somebody who delivers things to us, and sometimes somebody who invests in our business, or somebody who owns it together with us.
That's right.
And a handshake won't work.
No.
Warren Buffett is famous for not signing written contracts. Well, if you've got as much money as Warren Buffett, you can do whatever the heck you want. But if you're like you and me, starting out and hoping someday to maybe be as comfortable, or at least a little bit more comfortable, then we have to be careful. And we talked earlier about the importance of reading your contracts, your commercial lease, for example. But you also have to remember that all the words are important, but the one word that's the most important is the signature. Can you trust the other person that you're doing business with?
Right.
All the paperwork in the world is not going to protect you from somebody who's unreliable, reckless.
That's right.
Irresponsible.
Has no integrity. Right.
And better to figure that out sooner than later, and not have it find out the hard way.
Absolutely.
And business is business, but that doesn't mean it doesn't involve people, and it doesn't involve risk of hurting other people's feelings. You just have to be honest about it. That's all.
That's right.
Easy for me to say, but that's words to live by, in my humble opinion.
It's true. It's when I ran into a business, and it was a partnership. When you said that, I thought about partnership agreements and how a lot of businesses with partnership that just didn't work out for whatever reason, right? But one in particular that I was taken a little back by, I had a partnership agreement, and the two individuals were in partnership with each other. They ran a great business, and unfortunately, one of the partners passed away. But there was nothing in the contract that said that the wife couldn't step in now and be the business partner. And so I have to say, make sure you understand that. And so that wasn't a very good agreement. The wife's role in the business, she didn't understand it as well. And she wasn't clear, what the agreements were between the two partners prior to him passing away, and it just didn't end up being. It ended up with him losing a lifetime friendship, which was unfortunate. But what would you say in a situation like that? I mean, of course, read the agreement, understand the agreement, but there are some clauses that should be put in place, or some writing that should be put in place when this is going to terminate. Like if one of the business partners is no longer able to be a business partner due to death, then there should be some kind of something in the contract that speaks to that. And a lot of times we don't like to think about that. That's just like I tell my parents when I'm doing my trainings on insurances. I let them know we don't want to think about our children dying, but guess what? It happens. So you have to prepare for it, right? And so GoFundMe is not an insurance, right? So you have to make sure that there's something in place to take care of the situation if there is a situation like that. So what do you say about a partnership?
Well, business planning is estate planning as much as anything else.
I love that.
And
Business planning is estate planning. I love that.
so the business is part of your estate, part of your partner's estate. And you also have to think of it in estate terms. Who are the other parties that have an interest in this? In the example you talked about, your unfortunate friends, the wife was not active in the business,
No,
but she was a stakeholder. She had as much at risk as anybody else.
that's
And
right.
when the time came, she wanted to step in and take care of things
Right,
as best she could, which turned out to have been not very good.
right,
Not perhaps through any fault of her own, but unfortunately true. That's something you can anticipate.
right,
Death is inevitable.
right.
And even without a partner passing away, people's lives change, they move,
Yeah.
they turn out to not like the business, or the business turns out to be fabulously successful, and people want to, step away and just retire from it and turn it over to their children or to somebody else. I mean, there's all different ways that a business can end
Big result, right?
that you can think ahead of and plan for.
Right, and that's where attorneys come in at, right? That's where
You sure hope so.
because they can help you think of the 2 steps ahead that sometimes you may not think about. Because a lot of time we go into business bright eyes and bushy tail, and we want to save the world before bedtime, and we're not thinking of all of these other things. But one of the things that you said when we first started the conversation is we're human, like we're people, like we're not just business owners. Like there is some life and some things that's going on in our lives that can impact our business in a very crucial way. And so it's really important to have an attorney, to have someone that can give you the 2 steps ahead that you may not be thinking about. I like what you said when you said business planning is estate planning, though, because that really resonated. It kind of really brings it home for your small business. When you're thinking about it, you may not think about it in the beginning, but when you think about all the stakeholders that are involved in your business, you have to make sure you're planning for that. So that I like that. I like that. Thanks for that nugget for my business. Now, so we're in a business now. We have our business. We're growing our business. We're raising a lot of money. Whether it's a nonprofit, we're raising a lot of money. We're for profit. We're earning a lot of money, right? So what are some of the things that we can do to protect our assets, right? How do we kind of assure that we continue to go in that direction, or we think about some things? I had the pleasure. I'm always reading self-help books, right? So I was listening to one last night about a former Major League Baseball player, and he started a financial firm, and he grew this firm out, and he was investing in all these different business types, and his money was growing so fast that he didn't stop to protect it. And so it wasn't until 2007, 2008, and all of these things going up and down that he lost millions of dollars, and he stepped back from it and was like, had I just taken one step back to plan to protect my assets, then this would have really ended differently. Fortunately for him, he still had money. But what do I say to my small business that are like, okay, we're growing really fast? Because there's so much going on now. I'm hearing about, blockchain, and I'm hearing about cryptocurrency, and I'm hearing about all of these things that my business believe, I can be a influencer, a TikTok star, whatever that is, right?
Yeah, sure you can.
Protect our assets.
Right. I think
sure you can. Sure you can.
The essence of the lesson there is don't be afraid to talk to your competitors. Your competitors are a great source of advice, mentors. you know, it's an abundant universe. There's enough for everybody.
Mhm.
And people who've been there before you may well be generous with their time and their effort because it's in their interest that your entire business, your industry, if you're a bakery shop, all the bakery shops want to succeed. They want bakeries to be thought of well.
Right.
If you're a daycare center, it's in your interest that there be plenty of daycare centers and that they all be well run.
Mhm.
And you can learn from the people who went before you
Oh, wow.
or the people who advised them before you. That
Okay.
is to say, you can say to your competitors, who do you use for an accountant? Who do you use for a lawyer? Who do you use for a financial consultant? Or if you're going to the bank, you can ask your banker, you know what, you lend money to other small businesses like mine. Who do you think is good sources of advice and
Wow.
direction? That is not immediately obvious to everybody because you think that
No, it's not.
competitors, are like the other team on the football pitch, and that's just
Right.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
true.
Yeah. They're thinking competitor's enemy, but they're
Right.
not. Okay. Interesting. That's really interesting that you would say. I mean, as soon as you say competitors, it was like ding, 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 like a bell go off, right? Because a lot of my small business, when I start talking to them about business operation, they're trying to close everything. They're trying to hold it so close to the vest, and they don't want someone to steal their idea. And I explain to them all the time, just like you just said, there's enough for everybody. And not everybody wants the same thing, right? Like I've literally gone into a shoe store with someone else and we go to two totally different parts of the shoe store. We don't want the same shoes. We don't want the same color. We don't want, and so there's enough in that space for all of us to have a piece of whatever that is, right? So that isn't immediately obvious, right? That just because that person is a competitor doesn't mean that they're an enemy. We all want to be successful in this space, and you being successful is going to really elevate me into being successful or being well regarded as well. That's not really obvious, Andy. So that really is that's a good nugget. I never thought about that one. So that's really a good nugget. And then the other part was a mentor, right? There are
Yeah.
people that have gone before you. There are people that have made some mistakes that you can learn from. That you don't have to, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you also don't have to go down that road because they're there to encourage you and to show you. I think of Henry Ford and Edison and how they feel like 1,000 times, and what they said was, "I learned 1,000 ways not to do it." Right, and so you don't have to go that way because here's 1,001 way that you can do it right, right? So that's really interesting. So you gave me two nuggets actually in that particular in that particular scenario. One is look at your competitors, right? Learn from your competitors. Talk to your competitors, right? But more importantly, we all want to be regarded in the space that we're playing in. So if I'm a consultant, I want all consultants to be successful. I want all consultants to be regarded as being successful, right? And then the third thing being that we all don't want the same thing. And so, looking at this space and listening to our conversation, hopefully my small businesses that are listening to us today can walk away with, I can get a mentor, I can learn from my competitors, and I want my particular industry to be well regarded. I think that's three nuggets that you just gave in that one scenario. So thank you so much.
We're here to serve.
So guys, if you just tune in, I'm talking to Andrew Welchek, and I call him Andy as well. I'm interchangeable today. This really talking about his space. He's a business attorney, commercial real estate, and we're just talking about a couple of the barriers. We talked about some best practices. He gave us some great nuggets. Especially when it comes to understanding your commercial contract, understanding contracts in general, whether it's a partnership, whether you are in a specific business organization, understanding your competitor, having a mentor, being well regarded in your space. And one that I love, basically hiring someone to do the things that either your skill set don't involve you doing or you just don't like doing. I love that one, Andy.
It'd be our secret.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're winding down. As always, amazes me when I get on the show and we we start talking about so many good things that I like to share with the listening audience, because we don't want to just talk about barriers on the Coaxum Report. We also want to give some big ideas. And one of the big ideas that came out of today's show, which I definitely want to reiterate, is that business planning is estate planning, right? Because we don't really think about a business plan and estate plan in the same way. And there are a lot of stakeholders involved. And so we're making sure that we're protecting our business by understanding who the stakeholders are, number one, right? What role they play. And if there's a change in any way in our business, that we can all be protected. So that's some good stuff. So Andy, I mean, we're winding down, but just want to kind of get, I'm trying to get as much information as I can from you, because this is really an opportunity for my listeners to talk to an attorney, to understand what they really need to be successful in their business space. So what are some other things that we want to add?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask your lawyer questions. There are no dumb questions except the ones you don't ask. So if you're going to take all this advice that Terry and I are dishing out today, all of which is brilliant, by the way, then go ahead and consult with the people who may be able to offer you the assistance and the information that you don't otherwise have. But if you don't get it, it's their fault, not your fault. You are the customer. You can ask questions until you get it explained the way you want to.
Right.
I on the bottom of my email signature, I have a quote from Albert Einstein who said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So if Albert Einstein could figure that out, you and me, we can figure that out too.
That's
that
right.
When we're talking with somebody who's given us advice, whom we're paying good money to help us with our business, we want it to be clear. We want to understand. And if it takes 2 or 3 different times to get the answer until it makes sense, well, that's what you're paying for.
Absolutely. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And I'm going to add, don't be afraid to fail. Because failure just teaches you another way not to do it. Just teaches you another way not to do it. Exactly. A lot of my business, they're afraid to fail. One of the biggest problems that they have, I don't want to do it that way because I may fail. And I'm like, and then you'll learn to do it another way. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There is no dumb question. Don't be afraid to fail. You just learn another way to do it. I think failure to me is just a springboard for success. So, I mean, and it's a growth move too, right? If you're continue to do the same thing over and over again, what does that make us?
Out of our minds.
Absolutely out of our minds. But if we're continuing to grow in our space and learn new things to do, whatever it is that we're doing, we're growing, we're learning, we're growing, we're living, right? So don't be afraid to ask, especially if you feel like it's a dumb question, ask. Because someone else in the room, they don't understand it either. That's what I tell my students. My students always say, oh, I don't want to ask a dumb question. I'm like, there's no such thing. And guess what? If you didn't understand it, someone else didn't either. So you are actually helping your classmate out when you're asking a question that you're not clear on. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to give it all you got. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's really important. A lot of my small business, they don't want to ask for help. I think a lot of that's also cultural as well. Because I remember growing up, we were told not to ask for help or not to ask for money or not to ask for something that we didn't have, right? And I learned as I got into this business space that wasn't the correct way. Like Andy, you're not going to know what I need if I don't ask you.
I'm not a mind reader.
Exactly. So you got to ask for what you need. I remember when I was growing up, my grandmother used to say, "A closed mouth won't get fed." I didn't understand it, but I understand it now. So you have to ask for food. If you need to eat, you got to ask somebody for food. So it's really important to do that. I mean, these are some great nuggets. Hope you had your pen out, and Andy shared a lot of his rock solid information. And gave us some opportunities to dig a little further and not be afraid to ask a lawyer, right?
No,
if we need clarity on something, right? And so, we only have a few more minutes before we close out, but what would you like to leave with our listening audience today? I want them to get, I'm just, if we can pull it all together, because we had a lot of great stuff. And we started off simply by talking about your career and talking about commercial real estate. We talked a little bit about business organization models. We talked about nonprofit versus for-profit, what the needs and the mission of the organization is. We talked about estate planning, the business planning being estate planning, understanding whatever the organizational model is, understanding what that plan is. So if it's a partnership, understanding who the stakeholders are, and making sure that even as we understand the stakeholders, either direct stakeholders or indirect stakeholders. In the case that I gave about the wife who wasn't a direct stakeholder, but she was an indirect stakeholder when her husband passed away, she had a part of the asset to move forward on. And so understanding that, not asking a dumb question. You can ask questions to the lawyer, so making sure you're asking questions, protecting your assets. These are all great things. We even talked a little bit, Andy, believe it or not, we talked about some Department of Labor and having your paperwork in order with your finances and knowing your taxes and how much to pay, and having payroll systems or administrative systems if that's not your skill set, making sure that you hire someone that it is their skill set. And so we covered a lot. And so if we can wrap it all up for my listeners, what would that final breath of knowledge or that final nugget be to encourage my small businesses to keep moving forward and understanding that, that they can be successful in their space?
Well, first and foremost, of course, they got to keep watching the Coaxum Report.
That's right.
That's going to help.
Watching the report. That's right.
And the other thing is to be proud of being daring and willing to follow your dream. And I don't mean that to be sappy or facetious. We don't work just to pay the tax man. We work because we think we have some service to provide to the world, and
that's right.
That's a blessing.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm glad you said that. And so that's a really good way to wrap it all together. A lot of my business owners, when they come to me, they have a specific goal in mind when they started their business. Whether it was they wanted to just be their own boss, which is sometimes the case. A lot of times they just felt like their product or their service can save the world before bedtime. And so your encouragement to not be afraid to take the risk and to step out on faith and to ask for what you need and to understand that you're not in a river in Egypt. You're not you're not on an island. You're not alone, right? So there are so many different so many different spaces that can give support, can give encouragement. Here in New York, New Jersey, even in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, there's the Small Business Service Centers, there is the SBA, there's the mayor's office, municipalities that are all understanding that small business is the engine that drive our economy. So there are things in place to help these small businesses grow and whatever business organization you are in. And so Andy said it best: don't be afraid to take a risk, to step out on faith, and to grow your business or serve in your business, whether it is a widget or a product or service, making sure you understand that you have what it takes to accomplish your dreams and your goals. Andy, thank you so much for being on the Coaxum Report. We're going to have a follow-up show.
The more the better. Make it a series.
Thank you. Have a great day. And for all of those that are listening to the Coaxum Report, I hope that you have an amazing day as well. And I look forward to having you back on a report. Again, download our app at ourtv.network or listening to us again either on WSTX Bloomberg, Roku, Android, or Apple. Thanks again for being a part of the Coaxum Report. Have a super amazing day. Have a good day.